If you need help, please press 1.
All right, what's going on? Welcome to the Ramone Dixon Experience. Today is going to be something really special for everyone because today is going to be the episode where I get to talk about being with the same woman for the last 10 years. And I'm going to call this episode, I've known this woman for 10 years. And the reason why I find it so interesting being in this position is because this is something that it's been new. Everything's been new to me. I don't have all the experience with relationships because I've always avoided relationships. I've only been in one really major relationship and I was 20 years old. And it's interesting because of the circumstances of how everything goes and where we are now. And so what's interesting about this month alone is 20 years ago, around this time, I graduated high school. 10 years ago, around this time, I met Sarah. And 6 years ago, around this time, I proposed to her. And so over the last 10 years, the most interesting part is like I've learned a lot about myself, the patience, being comfortable with some things. And then, you learn what you're stubborn about. So, you don't know how and especially because you don't even know how you react until you're in the situation, right? And I actually think that's kind of interesting because like you either go one direction or another. People start leaning into, sometimes people might lean into their dysfunction. For me, it was like, okay, well, I don't want this to become something that could be a detriment if we are trying to build something. So I guess I'm gonna get to the point about, how it all started. So, back in like 2015, your boy was all in his sexy flex years and we met online. I used to get, you get the occasional email, especially you haven't been on in a while or, you really don't do much on there. So it'd be like, check our profiles. She wasn't on there or anything, but you kind of go in there, you click, figure out the area. Houston is huge, so just a lot of people that pop up. I've always looked at when it comes to these dating sites that everybody's just full of shit. Everybody trying to make themselves sound more interesting than they really are. Some people, it's like you ever work with someone and you're training them or you talk to them, especially like some of the girls, the women that started the jobs I've worked at, and you ask them about just a few things and they always like, I like to stay to myself and I'm really not into the drama and so forth. And it's like, and then after a while when they work in there, guess who's always end up in the drama and always messy? Like that's usually how it goes, right? So, like you want to, the idea is you want to invest time to meet people, but that was more based around like you go out and about, the traditional idea, where people want to meet someone, I know some people, the thing was always going to the club and you might come across someone. Hopefully you meet the good friend type of thing, right? But you go places, school, you have things like back in the day, people talking about library, or you meet through a family member, or you meet at church type of vibe, right? That was always the thing. You want to look good when you go to the gas station to pump gas, right? It was just always one of those things you just wanted to, you think that that's how you're going to meet people. But so, I'm sitting scroll, you look at profiles. I like to read the profile, you see maybe a few pictures. And I came across Sarah's profile and the pictures were solid. I thought the smile was great, a bright, welcoming presence with the pictures. And as I read the profile, I see her interest and the things she liked. And even though like, as I was reading those, I found it interesting. I found it something I related to. She was talking about her health journey and she loves art and the theater, those type of things. And, that's how I open up like, I found it interesting like that, like where places to go, that type of discussion. That's how, just engaging your interest and finding out more about that just because like I actually found it interesting more than anything else. And sometimes it's hard to even talk to people because usually, on these dating sites, like, man, people ain't really here to date. They out here to fuck. They're out here to find something to get into, you know what I mean? So that's just how the game always went. But for me, it was like, you just want to meet people, see how people are. Like I was working all the damn time. I was surrounded by a lot of people at the job where it seemed like they just had a lot going on or, and overall people have a lot going on, but you just wanted to figure out, okay, what's out there? What's different? Like you want to be open-minded. You might date somebody that you probably wouldn't meet or if you knew you talked to or not just being out and about, like who knows? And I think that's what's interesting about the dating game, especially online. Like I don't know what online looks like now compared to even 10 years ago. Shit, look at maybe 15 years ago how the game was, right? And so, there are things I just find interesting. So, she responded, and we chopped it up a few times in the inbox, and then she hit me up and she was like letting me know like, hey, look, I'm gonna discontinue this profile on here, but this is my number if you want to call or text or something like that. Go for it. She just kind of threw the number my way. So, usually, people wonder like, okay, what should I do about the call? Like, should I call right away? Should I not really call, but text? Should I text right away? Should I, just kind of get a good feel? Should I wait a day or two and things like that? And I don't remember how long it took. I don't think it was long. I was just like, I was like, all right, well, it's not going. She gave me the number, so you just do the casual "what's up" and see what's going on. And then around that time, when you talking to different people and you texting people, or you trying to kick it. The problem is you don't really know what's going on the other side. I've met women where they like you a lot, but it's always the game of like they with the options they might have, but also like sometimes you talk to a girl and all of a sudden she ain't talking to you for a while. You're like, damn, she ain't responding. And then it'd be like a week or two later, she hits you back up, and then they kind of talk about some ex kind of came back around and all this. Like, yo, it seems like you got some shit going on that you just can't get over or you keep dealing with, and basically playing games. And I don't really like playing games like that. And the thing with me is like, I'm always hesitant about stuff. People really never know how I really feel about things and things like that. Um, sometimes some people might assume if I'm flirting with them or if I like them or not, or, like, I just like getting a general vibe to kick it with people and then kind of go from there. But the one thing about me, I don't like playing games. Like, I don't even like when people assume if I like them or if I'm flirting with them. Like, I'm just being nice. I'm a welcoming person. Like, just because, I wonder if it's because when you big body, wide body, everybody just think you like them. And that was actually, it used to happen at the airport, certain job, where, people just assume I liked them because I was making them laugh and have a good time. It was like, damn, like, is the bar that low? Like, is it this easy? You know what I mean? But anyway, so after abundance of texting, she offered, like, hey man, we should go to dinner. On a random Wednesday at Papacitos. And now I think about it, I see she was trying to do. She was trying to invite me to Papacitos because now that being with her, she at the time she loved the margaritas. Fajitas on Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? I see what she was trying to do. She was trying to get me paid for the fajitas, the fajita plates. They be costing an arm and a leg now. Shout out to Papacitos. But it was so I lived on the north side of Houston by the airport. So I'm not too far from Deerbrook area. And the meetup spot was the 610 across the NRG Papacitos. And I always had a thing, first and foremost. I would like to say that I don't and didn't like driving far for anyone. Like, there's been situations and offers, and you like, all right, driving 45 minutes across Houston to kick it. And I understand sometimes, you want to do all that, you trying to get something. Even with me, even if the offer was on the table, I was like, be like, I don't know. Driving that damn far. I think, and at the time, I had my 2002 Chevy Tahoe. That was my baby. And, outside of, guzzling gas, it was just like, man, I don't really try like driving that damn far. But I was like, you know what? Let me take the chance, go out here and so forth. Now, I was late. And apparently, somebody was trying to holler at her. It was a young woman that was trying to holler at Sarah. Sarah could have switched the game up a little bit in her life, but I guess I'm in her life. So she always makes that joke all the time. Like, but so when I pulled up and I, the conversation we had was great. She had a great energy, very bubbly. She had a brightness, and like when she talk about things, you can see, her eyes and the smile, and she'd look up and things like that. And you notice that, and it's, it's hard. It's tough to find that and notice that in the people. Like there's so many people who've had different things in their lives happen, and that could dim their light. But in that moment in 2015, like she presented that, and it was great. Like I found a dope. We kicked it for a few hours, and yeah, you forget, like you kind of close down a restaurant, you out there in the parking lot still talking and things like that. You don't know when the discussion going to end anything else. And something that she said is, I didn't try to hug her or kiss her. And why is that? I don't know. I don't know why. Well, this is how I roll. Like, it's something I learned. I don't think people realize that the millisecond of an assumption could change everything. I could have been smooth, kind of knowing and you kind of see like, I bet, she'll, for me to kiss her, probably show some more interest in her in the moment, and if I could did that, I mean, she would have lost her damn mind that night. You know what I mean? But and maybe she was looking forward to it. I don't know, but the way I see it, I was just so caught up in the moment that I didn't even think about it. You just have a great time. I know I had to go to work the next day, and you just like, man, that was great. That was dope. It was interesting, and then you kind of see how it goes. Now, speaking of job, so Sarah was in the process of moving back home. There's things I didn't know at the time, and she had quit her job, and she was slowly in the process trying to figure out, moving our apartment. So she has a lot of moving parts going on at the same time as where we're kind of revving up our process. And I guess it was funny because, you randomly want to search people for, it's kind of like how went, movie Hitch, you got to search people to see what's going on. And, I seen that she had responded to someone tell her, she had quit her job. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, but what was funny about it all was like anytime we talk or text, because we at least try to see each other once a week. Me just, asking about work, oh, yeah, we got out early around 10 o'clock. Like the whole time she ain't got no damn job because she didn't quit. And I'm out here stressing, between my job and organizing. But I remember this one time where we went to go see Jurassic Park, which was funny because like me and Trey was supposed to go and things like that. And I was like, oh man, I'm about to go with Sarah. And that we joke about stuff like that. But anyway, so we went to go see Jurassic Park, and I'm trying to remember, was it before or afterwards? We was getting something to eat, and I was just telling her about, the stuff that I had going on, and what between my job and just my future. Like there was a lot of shit going on, and I was organizing at the same time. So it was just, you had a lot of the negotiations, the contracts. You got to stay after work, talk to people. You got so many moving parts about what goes on because you have people coming in and out of town anyway. And yeah, and it was crazy because me out here, telling her all my thoughts about that, and she already made her decision to leave her job. Like she was already on the move about, her next move and trying to figure everything else on the fly. And so, yeah, it was actually interesting to kind of, you look back at it and you're like, damn, she always say that, it's not like I was out here, asking for money and anything else, or I understand that, and her not having a job, but I actually kind of find it interesting. What if that was me and I didn't have a job and I met her and everything else? Would I get that same grace? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I would still have to pay for dinner. Like I was like, well, what if I didn't have any money? Would you pay for dinner? She's like, well, if I had to pay for it, then so be it. But it's like, yeah, but people get judged for that. I know no one wants to admit that, but there's a judgment behind that, right? Like I don't care. I don't really think about it, but people be judged. But so in between time, she was home for a little bit with her family, and we decided, hey, we're gonna spend 4th of July together. And so she came back in town 4th of July. She still had her place and everything. And when we kicked it, we our usually meeting spot ended up kind of being more in the middle of Houston. So we seen the fireworks. We was on Washington Ave. We went to get something to eat, and I remember whatever happened. I remember the back of my tooth, one of my teethuses was in pain. It was terrible. I have not felt pain like I was, and to the point where she had me get in her car because we drove met up. I was in her front seat folded, just in pain. So she driving me around trying to figure out, what we can do. She went to Walgreens, went in the store, got me something, everything else. She, did all the things that she would do today. Like it's one of those character traits people have where they're just making sure that person's good. And we spent the rest of the 4th of July pretty well, seeing the fireworks and hung out, and then we just went home after that. And so our favorite spot we used to hang out at was Herman Park. And I think that what's interesting about the Herman Park area is that's where we really develop a good friendship. We used to meet at Miller Outdoor Theater and watch some shows that was going on. And, I think that was very meaningful because what you end up doing is you start having a best friend. Now, and I understand when people have this fear about putting someone in the friend zone, but part of where relationships go is kind of building that good rapport, building that trust into someone, because even at that, it took, we didn't really do anything. And I don't need to go in details about that, even though it's a funny story behind it, until a month after we started dating and kicking it. Right. And so a month after we met, I'll say, because when we started dating, that was a month later, like made it official. So at Herman Park, we walk around, and I don't know if people know the area, but it's a roundabout with the waterfall. And we walked over there, and that's where we had our first kiss. And actually, it was kind of a thought process to kind of do a proposal over there. But what I did was, when I did propose eventually, it was over by where, where the door of the gardens over there in Herman Park. And it's a little sand area with all the rocks, things like that. That's where I did it. And, because I felt like, the foundation of what we built will be actually the point where we move forward with our life. But anyway, so, it was so much in between spending time together. Actually, she actually threw a surprise party for me and my friends, my birthday. So we, in August, what ended up happening was, she got to the point where she asked me out. Yes, I was asked out. She wanted to move forward in our situation. And it was great. It was one of those things. And it was in between time, we did discuss about our point of view about what we want out of our lives and what we look forward to and expectations. And she was brave to do that. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Like, that was great. And what was funny is, so a month later, she threw a surprise birthday party and had Trey, Noro. John wasn't able to make it. And AJ, her. And, that was kind of interesting because, like, she already built the comfortability with my friends. Like, that was really dope. And then we get to Thanksgiving. So in Thanksgiving of 2015, I finally meet Sarah's family. Now, mind you, I was going up there to meet her family, but I still was going home to Wisconsin because I had my 10-year high school reunion. So we had it where I go up there with her because she was in the middle of Yeehaw. And when I say Yeehaw, the Yee is of Halls in Breckenridge, Texas. And it was a couple hours west from Dallas. So I was able to leave out the Dallas airport and head straight to Wisconsin after the Thanksgiving because our 10-year high school reunion was around Thanksgiving time. So, during dinner, we eating and so forth, and it was interesting because that's when I, met her dad, her grandmother, mom, sisters, brother. And I remember, I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate, everyone, just the love and show some love to everyone. And as I was talking, you see phones popping up. And then the question is like, are you proposing? Yep. Yeah. No, not at all. Not even because I don't even was even thinking about prosing at the time. Like that was crazy. That was crazy to even think about for me at the time. Yeah, proposing. And that was life for us the first 6 months. So we fast forward to the time where we finally decided to move in together. So we go into late 2016, early 2017. What ended up happening was Sarah and I both ended up actually having jobs working downtown. So I got hired at the Marriott Marquis, and Sarah was working at Catholic Charities downtown. So at the time when she was living on the east side in Wallaceville area, it was tough because going down Highway 10 with no traffic is a 10-minute drive to get to work. Then with traffic, it turned about good 45 minutes. And if you want to take the back road, it can be a process, right? You hope you'll be able to make it in time. But I remember as we decided to move in together, we were thinking like, I approached her and said, hey, you know what? Maybe we should try to live closer to downtown. I think that it would be wise, on the front end, we might spend a little bit more money, but on the back end, we'll save a lot of money and a lot of stress, especially because where our lives were going at the time. I'm a little ashy and getting ready to go out of town. And what's crazy is we were so comfortable in that decision. So, we were busy. We moved in together. At the same time, I had opened up the Marriott Marquis, brand new hotel, a lot of the training and so forth that we had to do. And then, within our first month in dating, around the time her grandmother was dealing with some major health issues, concerns, especially late 2016. And then, Sarah was able to make time to go visit, but she had came back to go to work. So, yeah, it was like having her lose her job at Catholic Charities because they did a bunch of layoffs after working so hard to finally be put full-time. And then her grandmother passing on her birthday. And at the same time, her grandma's birthday is on Valentine's Day. So that is the toughest 3 weeks anyone can imagine. And we just moved in together. It was a process, a very challenging 2017 and 2018. Fast forward, 2019 June. Around that time, I felt like things were kind of hitting a good stride. some reason my mind just kept saying, look, Ramon, like all these different things. I think you're ready. I think you're ready to do it. You're going to do it. And it's interesting because for years, people have always kind of dragged the idea, kind of throwing out there. And I think what has helped also is me being in the wedding industry, because me being in the wedding industry, I get to see certain things that I wonder, okay, how do I, like you start thinking about yourself and your relationship and, how I view marriage overall. So it really opened my mind up to the idea more and more and more as I've been, doing hundreds of weddings. And so I just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I was out here ring shopping like crazy, figure out what works. And then I just got to a point, and I know this is not the most popular thing to do. I was like, look, I'm going to propose. If I don't have a ring right now, then so be it. My decision. I made my decision that this is what I was going to do. And I'm going to give myself a time and date to do it. I'm giving myself a timeline. Because knowing me, sometimes you put stuff on the back burner and it's like, oh, eventually I do it. No, I'm giving myself a timeline. I knew exactly how I wanted to do it. I didn't ask for permission. I didn't ask, I didn't talk to the parents. I was just like, this is what I want to do, because I was like, look, if we really want to be together, if she want to be with me and I want to be with her, I'm going to approach it in a way that it's meaningful. But if that's the reason for her to say no because all the other things that people want when it comes to getting engaged, and all right, cool. Like I was like, I don't care about all that extracurricular shit. Like I said, me being in the wedding industry, the one thing you learn is it comes down to the couple. Big wedding, small wedding, a lot of family, little family. Like you can do all that. But if the couple not in a good place, if they kind of just, then it becomes pointless. It like you're just doing this shit just to be doing this shit. Instead of thinking about what really matters, making the main thing the main thing. The main thing is your love, your care, your respect. And you can carry that anywhere you go. So I did it. It was so weird, man, like trying to get on one knee. I ain't even gonna lie to you. For a while, I was like, man, I feel so corny doing that. Not because I'm just like this overly manly type of dude. It's just weird. Like, I don't know. Imagine an unathletic person trying to run. Like, you know how weird it feels? Like, they, in their mind, they probably think they look goofy running, right? Actually, I knew somebody when they ran, their head always tilted to like this thing. So, we did it. It was a great moment. I felt better. I felt more comfortable. So we pushed our wedding back twice because of the pandemic. The plan was to get married 11/7/2020, right? But the pandemic happened, right? So, it was a lot in between going on. We thought we was okay, let's just do it early 2021, maybe a March type of wedding. Maybe we're trying to avoid the summer weddings. And also I had a family and friends coming. 30 of the people I know are from out of state. So that requires a lot of pre-planning and movement from a lot of people. And that's a lot of expectations for people. And, I just wanted to make it as comfortable as possible. So we ended up, pushing back a couple times and getting ready for November of 2021. Fortunately, July of 21. Now, before I go this direction, so a week before, Sarah had her 20th high school reunion. So we went to Breckenridge, the Middle Yeehaw, right? And so I met some of our classmates, friends, connected with some of our friends from high school, hearing the stories about Sarah. Cause, people be out here, they was out here, even though they grew up a very strict and sheltered household, some people it was enjoying life and having a good time in between time. And it was interesting because I remember when Sarah had to cut her, because they still have the great grandma's house and their grandma's house in Breckenridge. They still make sure that the house is in presentable shape. So Sarah went to rent out a John Deere and drove across through the small town and was able to drive it and cut the grass, right? So I had her dad ride with me in the flex. So he was in the front seat. He was just kind of kicking it. He's seen his daughter just roll and drive around in this big body thing. And, he's just so happy and proud. He wanted to get out the car and walk around, check the work and I remember he was telling me about when, he fixed the ceiling on someone's house across the way and just kind of talking to me about, because he was just happy to see it. Like it was one of those proud things that whoever, mom or dad, whatever you think you raise your child to do and be good at, and to see him do it in the flesh without you actually telling them to do it, they just did it. I can imagine how proud they are, because it's kind of like to see him do that. So, and I thought it was dope. It was great and adorable. So a week later, unfortunately, got a phone call. I had an event, and it was a Saturday. I think it was Friday, Saturday, but Sarah lost her father, and I remember calling my mom, and I was bawling my eyes out. And like you think about, and it remind me of the moment when Joan passed, and you have such a good friendship or connection with people, and between my brother and between Joy, like it was so sad, it was so hard, like thinking about how they're feeling, and even my relationship with them, even with the rapport I have. And that was the same thing that happened with Sarah's father, because I knew how much he meant to her, and and just kind of how devastating that is, because it was the unknown. You don't know what direction your significant other or a loved one will go when they lose someone, and it was already a tough process when Sarah, because everything was still fresh early in our relationship, when she lost her grandmother, and how hard that hit for her, and the different things that affected us in different ways. But this was tough, and I know it's still tough to this day. Like I had a lot of respect for that man, and every little thing. Even when we go down to Mexico, I finally went for the first time last year. Went again, and it's an emotional thing I have internally, because I think about, like, I respect and appreciate the man who sacrificed so much for the betterment of his family and what he was trying to build, and things he did had meaning, and the impact that he knew he would have on his children, and especially with Sarah, being him and Carlota's oldest child. And yeah, I was just hurt for her. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, it's tough seeing someone, that same bright light that I mentioned on our first date, you see someone slowly lose that light. They're just dimming. Just you see the light dim. And the reason why you can't compare it to a light bulb, because usually people are just like, you gotta change the light bulb. But nah, in this case, it's like, yeah. And one thing I try to be is, being the man that she can trust, care, and believe in, the same way she did with her dad. And so that's been one of the most interesting outlooks about my position in her life. Now, it's challenging because, it's a lot, it requires a lot of patience from me. But yeah, her losing her father a few months before the wedding, after pushing the wedding back so many times, and she didn't get an opportunity to have that first dance or even walk down the aisle. And what was crazy is, so, the idea was Sarah was going to, okay, her brother Jesse can walk her down the aisle. She's like, I'll walk it. She was going to walk the aisle by herself. I have so much love and respect for that woman for doing that. Her walking down the aisle by herself without her father. I don't like when people think it's normal to, we always try to charge things to the game, like, oh, you always got to be resilient. And it's good to have the strength emotionally and, have some resiliency when things happen. But when you think about a time to be, it's okay to be vulnerable, or like they say, weak. She literally could have walked down the aisle and just literally, her legs could have just wiggled and just got light, and she just hit the ground and bawled her eyes out. Like that's people don't understand the other side of what could have been, because of how emotionally draining that moment was to not have her father there, right? And so, and the strength that it took. And I was already in kind of a wild place, because post-COVID, your boy's brain was just fried. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm still trying to figure it out now, like structurally, like chemically. It wasn't, I just blank, straight up blank. Like I knew something was, I've been knowing something was wrong, and it was just like, I don't know. But anyway, so, but man, that wedding was it was great to be a part of it. That felt like Endgame, like Infinity War and Endgame for Avengers movies. It was like, you see all these different people from all these different places coming together. And that's what it was for the wedding, man. Like, I had friends live in California at the time, and I have friends in Wisconsin, I have friends in Texas, like in different parts of Wisconsin too. Everybody coming together in one and having a great time being there for us, man. That was one of the best days of my life. Even if you think about, man, we should have did this or should have did that. And, I'm thinking about, for me, so, my family, I'll just keep it a bug with y'all. That's probably the last time, maybe. I know outside of people talking about funerals, but I'm talking about just like having both sides of my family. I'm talking about the Dixon side and the Long side all together in one place. That is rare. That is the rarest thing ever for me. And so seeing that in one setting, in one place, and I've laid my heart out on that day. Like I'm not some people know I'm not the most emotional, lay it out there person, even though I let people know what I think. Not really how I feel, but what I think, and kind of open up a little bit. But yeah, that it was just the point. What was, I know how imperfect my mom is. I know how imperfect my dad is. I know how imperfect everybody is. And I mentioned this in, my men's mental health point, was like, I know people very well. I know their mistakes. I know, but me, I accept them. And that was the most important part. And I just want them to enjoy themselves. And I hope that was probably something motivating for my loved ones to be like, I want to have a day like this too. And hopefully finding a significant other, a partner that loves and appreciates and respects them and be able to build something with. So that's the wedding. And now we in San Antonio up to 10 years. How I'm feeling about everything is pretty damn good. There's things that the challenges, especially with Sarah, that I think that really, because the thing about it is we're going to be married 4 years this year. So the things that I think that are important for people to last long, like, I think we underestimate, as the years do rack up. Like, you got to make it to year 5, you got to make it to year 10, but what are you doing in the process to make it that far? And that's what get lost in all this. People just think that it just comes with territory. Like, no, there's work required when it comes to all this. And so, yeah, it's, where we are now. I mean, I am so proud of that woman, and it's crazy because we always joke about like for me, I'm, she always think that I'd be ready for the streets calling. Like, I've lived my life where, if I'm prepared to be single, then so fucking be it. Like, even now I go to movies by myself. I go out to eat by myself. I enjoy myself to know that I can be myself. But, even if I had to live life without Sarah, like, depending on how bad it ever goes, which I don't really think about it that way, but it's like, well, it'd be sad to be down, but you kind of have to, figure things out from there. But overall, the point I'm making is I'm proud of her because even with the challenges, even with so much going on, and we all question, okay, what's next? How we're gonna do this? It's like, I remember her mom when we first met, and we were just in there talking, and she always told me how Sarah was a little engine that could. Even when it comes to school, because Sarah tell you right now, when it comes to her years in school and how she was, like, yeah, she was a little engine that could. And that's how she is with her love. Like, she loves straightforward. It's right there in front of you. And you have to know how to handle and treat that, and how to handle her with that. Because sometimes some people love you, but they love loving you like this. They like, oh, I love you, but you got to catch me. But trying to love you, it's like, some people don't like that. Some people want that love straightforward. Like, they know it's right there. It's presented in front of them, and then you build from that. So, I'm glad that the last 10 years that, she's been existing in my life, and I am interested in looking forward to just the process moving forward, because it's one of those things. You wake up and you just want every day to be great. Like, for me, I hate drama. I don't like conflict, and if I do get into it about certain things, like, I got to pick my battles, because when I know I'm right, and I'll be right about a lot of shit, because I don't just all of a sudden just say shit to be saying it. But well, actually, when I be wrong about stuff, or I might be off base about something, the whole point is I'm trying to be understanding and find a solution to a problem. I'm trying to build where I'm constantly chasing peace. And part of that is having your significant other, having someone you can build with and love and appreciate. Yeah. Once again, we here in San Antonio, her career, the woman that I met that didn't have a job, who was telling me that she loves the work and she loves what she does, has stemmed into where we are now 10 years later. And I hope that she remembers to appreciate that and everything we have, because sometimes when people go on their journey, they don't realize, and they tend to forget sometimes, that you have to appreciate how far you've came and how far you've come from where you started, because there's the opposite way to that. Like, it could be a struggle for real out here. And so, the foundation of us being where we are, and how we are with each other and leading to everything else in our lives, I'm really proud of that. And I sit back and like, you know what? It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty dope. And yeah, I appreciate it, man. So yeah. So this is my point of view. I hope I didn't miss out too much, but just kind of give you an idea. I wanted to do this. I was looking forward to it. It's funny because what I've originally started recording, and then I was like, I wanted to get Sarah to do it, and I was gonna have Sarah's part 2 and just have me as part 1, but I was like, no, Sarah's was so damn good, she got to be part 1. I want people to really watch her and hear her, give her the spotlight because she's great with that. So yeah, I'll holler at y'all. I'm about to head to Milwaukee tomorrow. So my little brother graduates high school, and then I'll be back next week and talk about a few other things. Chop it up with y'all. I might do something in between, depending on how I feel. But other than that, I thank y'all. I appreciate y'all, and I hope y'all enjoyed.